Hello everyone, so welcome back. So in this video we will discuss about the stored procedure, right? So basically what we are going to complete, okay, so we'll understand what is stored procedure example, then creating a stored procedure with parameters, then how to alter the stored procedure, then moving the text of the stored procedure, and finally dropping the stored procedure. Okay, so let's understand what is stored procedure. Okay, so basically when we so if you are from a programming background, right, so if you have created functions, it's similar kind of functions. Okay, so we'll not say functions in SQL, right? So basically we call it as a procedure. Okay, so it's also called as stored procedure. So basically it is a collection of pre-compiled SQL statements stored inside the database. Okay, so it is a subroutine or a subprogram in a regular computing language. Okay, so a procedure always contains a name, parameter list, and the SQL statements. Okay, so we can invoke those procedures which we have created by using the triggers, other procedures. Okay, and applications like Java, PHP, and many more things. Okay, so here you can see, so stored procedure is a group of transcode SQL statements, that is TSQL. So if you have a situations where you write the same query over and over again, so you can save the specific query as a stored procedure and call it by its name. It's similar like a function. So assume like in the database, if you want to perform the same type of query 100 times, okay, so you can't write the same query 100 times, right? So instead of that, what you'll do, so you'll just create a stored procedure, and you'll have a set of SQL queries inside that. And so while creating the stored procedure, you'll give a name. Okay, so by calling the name, you can just run that particular query. Okay, so how many times you require, right? So this is what they have written. Okay, so a stored procedure is a group of TSQL statements. Okay, so if you have a situations where you write the same query over and over again, you can just save the specific query as a stored procedure and call it by its name. Okay, so here you can see, so use create procedure or create proc, okay, proc statements to create the stored procedures. Okay, so let's get started with the demo. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just look for the management studio, right? So SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so let's try to connect it. Fine. So I'll just go to the new query and let's start executing our queries one by one and how to create the stored procedures. Okay, so first let's create a database, right? So what I'll do, let's go and create a database. Okay, so one second. Okay, so I'll just create a database called sample. Okay, okay, so let's try to execute this. Okay, so you can see command successfully run. Okay, if I just go and refresh this and see if my uh, sample data has been created or not. Okay, you can see, so sample database has been created, and under the tables I don't have any tables right now, right? So first you need to so before adding table, let's try to use this, right? So let's use this sample and try to execute it. Okay, so now I'm under this database. So now let's create a table. So create a table called tb employee. Okay, so let's add id. Okay, so of int, so it would be the primary key. Okay, so let's add name of an varchar of 50. So let's add the gender. of 50. Anyone, let's add the department. Okay, so of integer data type. Okay, so let's close this. Okay, so we are creating a table called a table employee, and we're adding the three columns here. One is ID, sorry, four of ID, so which is of integer data type. We're making a primary key, and we're adding a name, gender, and the department. Okay, so let's try to create this. Okay, so we have created this table. Okay, so let's add the values to the table. So let's add insert statement. Insert into table employee, and let's add the values. ID 1, Imran. Okay, so mail and ID, I'll just add 1. Okay, so let's see like if we can just see the table and the value inside it. Okay, one row affected. So let's refresh this. Let's go to the tables. Okay, so you can see like uh table has been created, that is table employee. Okay, so now let's copy the same thing. Okay, so let's change quickly the IDs. 6, 7, 8, 9, and finally 10. Okay, so here I'll just change the names. Okay, so let's keep it wrong, let it be 1 and the ID 1. So here I'll just change to Sarah, and let's make this as female. Okay, so an ID I'll make it department 3. Okay, so for the 4, let's add some name. Okay, so let's keep it main and the ID as 2. So for the 5th, let's make it John, male, and the ID 3. So let's add again once again Sarah. Okay, and here let's make it female, and ID I'll put it Sarah is 3, right? So I'll just put the ID as 2. Okay, so for the 7th, so James male, and let's make it 1. So let's add one more name, Steve male and 1. Finally some name, random name. Let's make it this is female, and I'll make it this is 2. Okay, so I'm inserting some values here. Okay, so let's try to run this. Okay, so all the rows are affected. Okay, so now let's see if I do select star from TB employee. So let's run this. You can see, so we have created a simple table. Okay, so we have created the database called sample. So then we have created the table, then we inserted the values, and you can see the table over here. Okay, so now for example, okay, so I want to run a query. Okay, so assume like so I want select, so I want name. Okay, so then I want gender uh, from table employee. Okay, so assume like in our so I want to create a stored procedure where I can just want a name and gender. Okay, so I can create a stored procedure. Okay, so what I can do, so to create a stored procedure, this is what the syntax is: create. Okay, So we'll be adding called procedure. Okay, so we need to give the procedure name. Okay, so it should always start from the SP. Okay, get employee. This is the okay. So see, this is actually uh, so when we're creating a stored procedure, it's good practice to add the SP in the front. Okay, so that we can identify this is whatever we are just creating is a stored procedure. Okay, so I'm just creating a stored procedure called get employee. Employee. Okay, get employees. So it starts with the letter AS. Okay, so as begin. Okay, so then we need to add a statement. Okay, so I want to extract this whenever I call this stored procedure. Okay, uh, so and finally we need to add it end of this procedure. Okay, so we have created a procedure called sp get employees. Okay, so as begin, and we need to add the query. Okay, so let's click on end and execute this. Okay, you can see commands completed successfully. Okay, if I just refresh this. Okay, and before that, okay, so now I'll just show you the output. So if I just call this stored procedure called sp get employees. Okay, MPLOYES. Okay, sp get empl. Okay, employees. Okay, so if I just call this, so you can see I'm able to retrieve the data. Okay, just I'm just calling by its name. Okay, so this is what sp get employee. So in this slide also you can see, so use create procedure or create proc statements. Okay, so now so we can create the even the by stating that it's a procedure, or we can mention this proc. Okay, I'll just show you that. So what I'm just saying is, okay, so if I just copy the same thing. Okay, so instead of writing entirely as a procedure, so I can just replace this as a proc. Okay, so even this is correct. Okay, so this is what to create sp. Okay, so when naming your user defined stored procedure, so Microsoft recommends not to use sp underscore, because so there are many default which stored procedures which is created by the Microsoft. Okay, so there's by default. Okay, so it's not user defined. Okay, so it's like it's already inbuilt. Okay, there are some stored procedure which is inbuilt. Okay, so we should not create a stored procedure with the sp underscore. Okay, you can start with the sp so as a prefix. So all the system procedures prefixed with the sp underscore. Okay, so this is what they have stated. So this avoids any ambiguity between the user defined and the system stored procedure, because all the procedure which is defined inside the system. Okay, so it just start with the sp underscore. Okay, so that will not have any conflicts and with some future system procedures. Okay, so this is what how we create procedure, right? So even like so to execute. Okay, so we can just call by its name, right? So as I told you, so we can just call the procedure name, or else you can just make use something called execute. Okay, so I can just completely write execute. execute. Okay, so execute and the store procedure name. So sp get employees. Okay, so if I just run this, I'll get the same output. Okay, so this is another way of executing the store procedure. Or else you can just or else you can just uh, type the short form, that is ex uh, execute. So even you will retrieve the same result. Okay, so this is all about creating the store procedure. I hope you understood, right? So I'll just summarize what we have done. So we have created a database called sample, we have created the table called employees, right? So inside that we have added the values, and we have created a simple store procedure where we get the employees based on the name and the gender. Okay, So even we know how to execute it. So one way is to just call by the stored procedure name, or else you can just type the execute with the state procedure name.